What if I told you the universe isn't just a random accident? What if it's actually an incredibly sophisticated operating system running on a hidden code? A code that somehow manages to unify quantum physics with ancient scripture. Well, today we're diving into a theory that claims to have found that exact code, a God's number that connects the very rules of reality to the words of Revelation. We usually think of science and scripture as being in two totally different corners. One gives us the language of wave-particle duality and thermodynamics. The other talks about divine commands and mercy. But what if they're not separate worlds at all? What if they're just two different languages trying to describe the very same thing? And you can really see that divide right here. On one side, physics talks about these advanced and retarded waves, basically signals that move both forwards and backwards in time. On the other, the Quran speaks of light as this timeless, absolute truth, and sound as a mercy that unfolds over time. They sound completely unrelated, don't they? Well, the theory we're digging into today claims to be the bridge that connects them. And that bridge is a concept called the dual scholastic universe, or DCU for short. The core idea is that reality isn't just one thing. Instead, it operates through two fundamental parallel channels. They're totally distinct, but they're also deeply interconnected, kind of like two sides of the same cosmic coin. So the first channel is the light caustic. Just think of this as the source code of the universe. It's the realm of pure potential, of absolute truth, of divine command. In physics terms, this is the world of quantum mechanics, the set of hard, unchangeable rules that dictates what's even possible in our universe. It's the stuff that simply is. The second channel, that's the sound chaostic. And if the light chaostic is what is, the sound chaostic is what happens. This is the world you and I actually experience, the flow of time, cause and effect, the laws of thermodynamics. It's where all that potential from the light chaostic gets to play out and unfold as a sequence of events. But here's the catch. Light and sound are almost like matter and antimatter. If they were to touch directly, they'd just annihilate each other. So how do they talk to each other? The theory says there's a third, critical element, the buffer. You can think of it as this perfect mediating zone, a balance point where potential meets reality. And this, right here, is supposedly the zone of consciousness, of choice, where the timeless rules of light get translated into the unfolding story of sound. Now, this isn't just some vague philosophical idea. The theory claims this is a highly structured system with its own operating code. So let's take a look at the first part of that code, the 2-3-7 structure, the very architecture of reality. In this model, these aren't just numbers, they're processes. So 2 is the fundamental split of everything into dualities, like light and sound. 3 is the cycle of how things actually come into being. You've got a source, it goes through the buffer, and then it resolves. And 7 represents the structural limits, the built-in layers of reality itself. Think of this as the static blueprint of existence. Okay, so if 2-3-7 is the static OS, the blueprint, then how does anything actually happen? How does anything move or change? Well, that's where the 3-6-9 process flow comes in. This is the engine that runs on that OS. It's the dynamic process that drives literally everything. And just to be super clear, the theory argues this isn't numerology. It's a model of transformation. Think of it like an assembly line. It all starts at step 3 with a potential, an idea, a command. It then moves to step 6 where it hits the buffer and starts to take actual form. And finally, it completes at step 9 where it stabilizes and becomes a concrete manifest reality. It's the journey from a simple idea to a finished product. All right, this is where the cosmic model gets really personal. This system isn't just about how galaxies form, it's also about our own experience. Specifically, it points to a fundamental error we're all capable of making, and how we can find our way back to alignment. The number one bug in this system is called the Taghūt error, and it's simple. It's when the creation mistakes itself for the creator. It's what happens when a system or a person looks at the results it's producing and completely forgets the source command that made it all possible in the first place. It's the grand illusion of thinking, I am the Lord High, the sole author of your own reality. So how do you fix an error like that? How do you solve the puzzle? Well, the system needs a solution key. And according to this whole framework, that key is the number 20. Now, you might recognize that number. It's famously known as God's number because it's the absolute maximum number of moves you need to solve any scrambled Rubik's Cube. So how on earth does this model get to the number 20? It lays out a specific formula. The 2 stands for that fundamental binary split of reality we talked about, light and sound. That gets multiplied by 10, which represents one full minimal cycle of a process. So 20 becomes the minimum number of steps you need to get from any state in the system back to the solid state. The incredible claim here is that the same logic that solves the cube also solves the cosmos. Okay, and this is where the theory gets incredibly specific, tying this cosmic code directly to scripture. It argues the sound channel had to be turned on first to lay down the rules of the game. It points to Mūsā, that is Moses, as the vessel for this, referencing a verse in the Quran, 2010, as the moment the sound of God first entered the world sequentially. Mūsā could hear the law, but he couldn't see the instantaneous result. Only after those rules were set, encoded into the system, could the light channel be fully activated through Ahmed or Muhammad. And with the rules already in place, reality could now just collapse into outcomes instantly. This, the theory claims, is why human civilization suddenly accelerated so fast. The cosmic engine was finally running at full power on pre-built tracks. All right, so let's zoom out for a second and put all of this together. We've got a structure, a process that runs on it, and a solution key that fixes it. How does this all fit into one single, cohesive picture of reality? This table really breaks it down perfectly. The 237 code is the architecture, it's the operating system. The 369 flow is the engine that runs on that OS, describing how things change and evolve. And 20? 20 is the solution key. It's the minimum path to solve any problem in the system, whether it's a Rubik's Cube or a human life trying to find its way back to alignment. And this quote just perfectly captures the entire idea. It's a huge claim that the universe isn't some chaotic, random, endless mess. It's a puzzle with a finite solution, governed by a very specific and maybe even beautiful algebraic structure. It really leaves us with a mind-bending question to chew on. Is it possible we're living inside an intricate cosmic code? One that truly bridges that gap between the physical world we can measure and the spiritual one we can feel? And if so, are we, after all this time, just now learning how to read it?